855 taken on February 22nd, 2019, versions A, E, and F. If you shift the graph of y equals x, so you can just give yourself a visual, that's what I'm doing. Let's just say you give yourself an absolute value graph, and then it tells you to shift it up 3 units. So shifting up is going to be your d value, and up means positive 3. And then 2 units to the right. So this is my c value, and my c value is going to be a positive 2. You get the graph of, so if I look at all of these, I have 5 choices here. I want something that has a d of plus 3. So this one works, nope, that's positive 2, and this is down 3. So I have these 2 choices now. The choice is plus 2 or minus 2. When you take the c value and you put it into the formula, the shift is x minus c. So that minus sign has to stay there, and this is the c value is a positive 2, so our answer is going to be B, f of x minus 2 plus 3. Here's a couple of ways that you know this is true. If you, my trick, add to x, go west or left, add to y, go high. So the adding to the x values would make it go left. In this case, you want to go right, so you'll have the minus sign there. And adding to y, that basically means like something like this. Adding to y, go high, so it will be shifted up. So your correct answer is B. Multiple choice, determine the number of zeros possible for p of x. Remember, possible zeros is just saying x-intercepts, the number of x-intercepts. And in this case, you're looking for the highest degree, or exponent. The highest degree or exponent are those little numbers to the top right. Another word that is students could be confused is the coefficient. That's the number in front. So if you circle the highest degree, the degree tells you the number of x-intercepts. So in this case, we're going to have 5 or less x-intercepts, which would be C. Number 3, multiple choice. Determine algebraically whether the function is even, odd, or neither. So algebraically means you're going to take sub negative x for every x. For every x value, basically put in negative x. So put in a negative x, and negative x inside parentheses. And then I'm just going to go ahead and simplify that. Negative x to the 4th power. It's blurry, let's make that clear. This becomes a positive x squared, and this is a positive x squared, so that'll give us x to the 4th. So this becomes x to the 4th, and I still have that negative, and then the opposite of a negative is a positive. So if you have the same exact thing, then you have something called an even function. So this one does not look like exactly, although it says negative 3x to the 4th. This one says plus x, this one has minus. Odd would be the opposite of the original. So the opposite of the original would have been 3x to the 4th plus x. This one has a negative, so it's not even, not odd. The answer is neither. At the end of this video, I'll put screenshots of the individual question, so you'll see how many points I give each if it wasn't multiple choice. Find the function f whose graph is shown below. Okay, a couple of things that I notice. The end behavior starts up, ends down. So this looks like the easiest one we know, and that would be a odd, and this would be a negative. Because remember, a linear positive would start in this direction. So, okay, so that means that the exponents will have an odd degree, and you can even count the number of degrees if that helps. That's helpful. And you can even look at the behaviors. So something you do is something like this. X equals -1. We learned that's called a shoot-through. And a shoot-through means that the exponent or the multiplicity is a 1 or an odd. Same thing here. At x equals 0, it is a shoot-through, and it's a shoot-through because it's going through it, right past it. So that means it's going to be a 1 or an odd. Okay, at x equals 1, that's also a shoot-through. And then pay attention, this is the only one that is a bounce or a kiss. So at x equals 2, we have a bounce or a kiss, and that's because your degree or the multiplicity is going to be a 2 or an even. Okay, so the first thing you should just look for is this one right here. Let's make sure that's really obvious. That's called, what's I going to write? Leading coefficient. Leading coefficient. Okay, so that negative number in front. So let's look at all those that have a negative leading coefficient. So there's no negatives. These two have a negative. And because they don't have a negative in those, I'm going to cancel those. Okay? All right, the next thing I'm going to do is then I can use my clues, and you can figure this out. So this one is x minus 2. Remember, to make that equals to r's, you can do x minus 2, and you set it equal to 0, and then you solve, and you have x equals 2. So basically right here you have an x equals 2 with a degree or multiplicity of 2. That one has it, and this one has it. Okay, I'm putting check marks there to show that we agree. X minus 1 is the same thing as x equals 1. So we have that with a odd or a power of 1. Remember, there's a power of 1, there's nothing there, so that works. So we got the 2's, we got this one. X plus 1 is the same thing as x equals -1. So let's see, got that right here. Okay, what's the only difference between these? Well, we're missing this one right here. You see, x equals 0 is right there. This one doesn't have it, therefore the answer is C. So, and the reason why the answer is not B, because you have this x. Basically, you use the zero product rule and you set each of these equal to 0. Question number 5. Identify the end behavior of the polynomial function. Right here, they tell us that it's a cubic function. So this is an odd, and I'm going to relate that to the easiest odd that we know, x to the first, and my graph will look like that. There's no negative, so I'm going to start down, end up, just like it does here. And the end behavior has a sentence as. So when I see as x approaches, that's what the arrow is, as x approaches negative infinity, so as the x-axis, so if I had to visually show you, all of these front parts of the sentences in yellow, you are basically using the x-axis. So you are essentially going from negative to positive, so or left to right. So as x goes to the left, what happens to the graph? This one says on the y-axis you're going towards positive infinity up here. So this axis would be these. So these are the ups and downs based on what it says, the negative and positive infinities, and then the other ones are just the lefts and rights. So that's one way of seeing end behavior. So this says as the graph goes towards the left, this end behavior says it should go up. That's not the case. As x goes towards the left, this one's saying y values go up. That's wrong. As x goes left, negative infinity, the graph goes down. That is correct. As x approaches positive infinity, so going towards the right on yellow, the graph goes up. That makes sense. And I just want to double check this one. As I go left, you go down. As you go right, this one says you go down, so that's incorrect. So my correct answer is C. So if you think about it, you have one going down, one ending up, and that's one positive, one negative. This one would be an even degree polynomial. Even degree polynomial because they're the same. They're the same. This would be an odd degree. So the front side. Let's see. 2 points for your name. Let's do this with a pen. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that is 12 points for the front side.
Alright, this is the backside of versions A, E, and F. Question number 6. Sketch a set of functions whose product builds a cubic function with the given characteristics. Explain your reasoning. It gives me the zeros x equals -3, x equals 2, and x equals 4. So sketch means to draw. A set means multiple. Now, you may have been like me when I first did the problem and I looked at it and I was like, oh yeah, I just need to draw a cubic function. If you did that, I only gave you 2 points out of 4. How did you get 3 points? To get 3 points, you would have to have drawn 3 linear equations or 1 linear and 1 quadratic that goes through x equals -3, x equals 2, and x equals 4. Now, if you just have my blue and pink correct, you got 3 points. Because it tells you to explain your reasoning. A quadratic times a linear equals a cubic. Or you could have done a linear times a linear times a linear equals a cubic. Now, a common mistake is if you wrote the word something like quadratic and linear. That is not sufficient. You have to use the word times. Okay? Again, another common mistake was actually just drawing a cubic function as well. That was question number 6. Question number 7. This is called a Ken or an Inky. Fill in the blank squares so that each row and each column contain all of the digits 1 to 4. Numbers in cages. Cages are the darkened areas. May repeat as long as they are not in the same row. Rows going side to side, column up and down. So the first thing you're going to do if you haven't done one of these before is you're looking for the freebies. Here's my freebie. I wrote a 1. It's a freebie because it's a darkened cage all the way around and it has no math operation. That means that this column here is missing the numbers 4, 3, and 2. Well, I need to think of 3 numbers that add up to 9. That's 4, 3, and 2. I'd probably look at the 12s. So this says times 12. So these 2 numbers multiply to be their product to be 12. So I have 4 and 3. Well, this is a combination of 4 and 3. The only number you can put here is a 2. In some ways, if you do 3 minus 2, you get 1. So 1 plus 2 equals 3. This says 2 numbers when you subtract them. Now, it does not mean 1 minus 4. It just means like taking the 2 numbers, biggest number, minus a smaller number, you get 3. That's what it means. So if you got all of that correct, then you got 4 points. If you did it and you got it wrong, you get 1 point. Question number 8. Question number 8 tells you to graph f of x equals x times quantity x minus 1 squared. Well, if you take this x here, and really this is kind of like you're eventually going to have x squared. That means if you do x times x squared, your answer is going to be x cubed. You're going to create a cubic function here. Now, if you apply the zero product rule, this is the problem we did the flipped classroom where I asked you to put in your headphones, watch 3 examples, and then you created a 4th one by turning in that video. That's this problem. So here, this problem says, take x, set it equal to 0. That's zero product rule. If you expand this one, this means there are 2 of them, and you set each of those equal to 0. You get the same answer, x equals 1. These are called zeros. So x equals 0. And the degree or multiplicity here is a 1. And then over here, sorry, let me finish that one. If this is a 1, that means it is a odd, or we call it a shoot through. It's going to shoot through the x-axis. Over here, where it says x equals 1, its degree is actually a 2. And the reason why it's a 2 is because you have the 2 right there. Or you can even count them, 1, 2. That means at x equals 1, you're going to do something called an even or kiss. Now, a cubic function acts like a x to the first, which means like a linear. You're going to start down, end up. Start down, end up. And then it tells you, well, at x equals 0, we're going to have to shoot through there. And at x equals 1, we're going to have to do a kiss. Notice I have my numbers. So I'm going to start going from left to right. I'm going to have to go through here. And then we're going to bounce or kiss off the x-axis and finish up. How did you receive full credit for this problem? You drew a cubic function, an odd degree. You have the end behavior, starts down, ends up. You have your zeros labeled, 0 and 1 here. And you have the multiplicity correct, meaning at 0 it went through, and then there was a bounce at x equals 1. You got 3 points on the problem if you made 1, 2 mistakes. And then you only got 2 points on the problem if you maybe just drew a cubic function but wasn't very as accurate as mine. Or you didn't label it. Number 9. Draw the polynomial function with the following. You have 4 dots, so 4 characteristics. As x approaches positive infinity, so that means as you go to the right, what's happening to the graph? It tells you the graph is going to do positive infinity, which means it's going to finish up. As x approaches negative infinity, that basically means as you go towards the left, what happens to the graph? It says f of x, or the y values, you will end up going down. So this one says going to the right, you go up. Going towards the left, you go down. It tells you you have a Y-intercept. Let me highlight this so you can see it. It has to go through here. This box and this characteristics, we just said, starts. As you go towards the left, it's down. If you go towards the right, it's up. It says 3 x-intercepts. Does not matter where you put them. And then it says 2 relative extremas. Those are just the maximum minimums. So as I draw my polynomial, if you got all these characteristics correct, you know it's correct because I put checks by them, then you got 4 points. If you made 1 or 2 wrong, like I put a little X there, that means you got yours wrong. And you got 2 points if you got at least 1 correct. All right, question number 10. In question number 10, it says, for f of x equals x cubed minus 4. Write the rule for each function. A rule means it applies to the x and y coordinates. And I kind of hopefully gave you a hint as I wrote x, y, and then what happens with the transformation. Remember that the x values are affected by the B's, and the C's. And the Y value is affected by the A and the D values. So right above this equation, I can have written A and then your function, which is a cubic function, and then this one has a D. So we only have really only one letter, which is a D. So what does that D value affect? It affects the Y. All you had to put here was -4. So if you put -4 there, on the right side, you got 1 point. Over here, if you didn't write 0, if you just left it blank, then you got 1 point there. So that problem was out of 2. 10b, it says, describe the transformation. Well, really, you only have one letter, and the letter is D. What does the D do? That's the vertical translation. It's shifted down 4 units. So if you wrote something about going down 4 units, then that would have been correct. All right, question 10c. This is probably the most missed question, number 10. Simplify the following. You're given the function g of x equals f of x plus 2. If you just recopied that, that's not an attempt to the problem. That's why I gave you a 0 and not a 1. It's saying in the function of g, I want you to use the f function, but don't use the f function. Put in x plus 2 into it. So here is f of x. This is f of x. F of x is the x value cubed minus 4. And what you did is that for every x value, let me write this, this might help. This helped me. Instead of every x value, you're going to write x plus 2. So every x value in that function, you're writing x plus 2. Well, you have to simplify. That's what it says, simplify. What does that mean? I have x plus 2 cubed minus 4. So that means I have to write this x plus 2 3 times. X plus 2 times x plus 2 times x plus 2. If I do it the first 2 times, I have x times x gives x squared. 2 times x equals 2x. X times 2 gives me 2x, and 2 times 2 gives me 4. So you multiply and then you combine like terms. So I have x squared, 4x plus 4. So I did the first 2. Now the third one, x plus 2, now I have a trinomial times a binomial. And that's why it's going to have 6. The reason why it's going to have 6 boxes is it's kind of like 3 times 2 is going to be equal 6. So now I have x times x squared, which gives me x cubed. X times 4 is 4x squared. X times 4 is 4x. X squared times 2 is 2x squared. 2 times 4x is 8x. And 2 times 4 is 8. When I multiply x plus 2 3 times, I get this as my answer. Now, this was a common mistake for getting that negative 4. Well, do I need the parentheses with that minus 4? The answer is no. 8 minus 4 is 4, and this is your answer. To get some partial credit on that problem, if you at least put in x plus 2 into the function of f of x, then at least gave you 2 points. That side was 24 points. And then 24 plus 12 gives you, the test was out of 36.